would have a baby and why, right? If someone forced upon you a leaking plastic bag containing the same mixture of bile, excrement and urine that you find in a baby, right? You wouldn't dress it in a crocheted hat and teach it how to speak, right? You would flush it down the toilet where it belongs with all the other waste products, right? Because that essentially, in my view, is what babies are, a waste product, right? As urine is a waste product of drinking and excrement is a waste product of eating, so babies are a waste product of sex, the pain in exchange for the pleasure, so to speak. If someone offered you a choice between a leaking plastic bag containing the same mixture of bile, excrement and urine you find in a baby and a baby, you would take the plastic bag. Because at least you wouldn't have to change its nappy every 2 hours, right? There's no excuse for men to want to have babies. There's an excuse for women, because women have wombs and they must be, like, curious about how they work. Right? To have a womb and to not want to, like, try it out is the equivalent of being locked in an empty room for 20 years which contains only a tea cosy and not being tempted to find out if the tea cosy would make a serviceable hat. But there's no excuse for men to want babies apart from vanity and egotism. It's like thinking, I wonder what a smaller version of my own face would look like. If I want to see what a smaller version of my face would look like, I'll go to a passport photo booth or else look at myself in the distance via a complicated arrangement of telescopes and mirrors. I won't have a baby, but tragically, just as there'll always be flies, rats, vermin, pestilence, disease, there will always be babies. Worst thing about babies, if a baby speaks or makes a sound approximating speech, people gather round, like, cheering and applauding and laughing. I can speak. I'm speaking now. But people aren't sitting around clapping and laughing. Some of the time they are. Mainly they're just sitting here feeling vaguely uneasy about what I'm saying about babies. That's why I'm not friends with any babies. I hate them. I tried to make friends with a baby once in the park. Its mother had gone off into the toilets. I went over there. There was a misunderstanding. The police became involved. I don't know why. It was only cannabis. You know, that's legal in some parts of Australia. And the baby didn't say a word in my defence. Babies. It's now some months since the tragedy of the royal death, and so I think it's probably fair now to talk about it in a reasonable sort of way in retrospect. One of the things I found most confusing about it was the way that different people chose to express their own personal grief and loss in so many different ways. For example, I went down to Kensington Palace, and there, amidst all the floral tributes and handwritten messages of condolence, there was genuinely a life-size inflatable model of E.T. I thought, what sort of person felt that was appropriate? What kind of household did this come from? Well, like, the woman went in on that tragic Sunday morning, said to her husband in bed, terrible news, Princess Diana has been killed. He said, how? She said, in a car accident. And he goes, better go out and get a life-size inflatable model of E.T. then. And she'd say, yeah. And you'd better hurry, there'll be a rush on those now. Strange to think there's probably foreign tourists looking at that as well, who think it's some peculiar British custom. There's probably a man in a bar in Prague right now saying, of course, in Britain, when a member of the royal family dies, they commemorate that by decorating the gates of their house with inflatable life-size models of E.T. Not Yoda or Moffat from Battlestar Galactica, only E.T., that's what they're interested in. But you can see where that link came, because E.T. is quite a spiritual figure in a lot of ways. He's like, E.T., I think, personally, is very like Jesus, right? For 3 reasons. 1, he's like Jesus because his hands have the power to heal. Secondly, E.T. is like Jesus because he's a fictional character who doesn't exist. And thirdly, E.T.'s like Jesus because he regularly consorted with whores. That bit was missed out of the E.T. film, so it could get a 12 certificate, but there's a director's cut with some amazing animatronic fingerwork in it. Do look out for that. But actually, on the subject of E.T., I just went to LA, right? I went on the Universal Studios tour, and there's an E.T. ride you can go on there. There's a big building, loads of models of E.T. outside it, loads of tourists who've just come from Britain who assume someone famous has died. Referring back there. And you go in and you give your name in to this woman on the gate, and a computer record is taken of it, so that when you leave, E.T. can actually address you. And as I was going out on the little bicycle you ride through on, the E.T. model looked down at me and he went, "Thank you for coming, and goodbye, Stewart." And I thought, I really hope I don't die now. And this is the last thing I ever see. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, in a race, obviously the chicken, as the egg has no internal motor system. No wings or legs or anything like that, although the egg could conceivably win if it was travelling in one of those little machines made by Professor Heinz Wolff. And no, there isn't another series of The Great Egg Race in the pipeline. But egg is one of those really weird words. It's one of those words, when you say it a lot, it starts to seem unfamiliar and you can't actually believe it is a word that's in common currency. Egg, it sticks in the throat, the word egg. It's a disgusting thing to think about eggs. If you're one of those people that likes to eat eggs, right, then what you like to eat, what you think is a good thing to eat, is an unfertilised bird embryo, right, that has passed out through a tiny flap of skin between the legs of a chicken, right? You think that is a good thing to eat, right? When I think about eggs, I get these horrible, disgusting visions in my mind of a really enormous, fat, naked man with, yolk smeared all over him, wearing really tight young girls' pants, pulled up really tightly with, more yolk smeared all over them, and he's picking up a succession of squealing chickens and holding them up to his mouth and sucking the raw eggs out of them, laughing and saying, "Eggs, eggs, I love eggs, I want more of them now." That is what I think of when I think of eggs, and you like to eat them, right? Egg. And worse than that is Scotch eggs, right? As if the idea of, eating an unfertilised chicken embryo isn't disgusting enough. You want to, smear them with, meat made out of, all the off-cut bits of dead pigs, right? Now, not only is that an offence to pigs, it's an offence to Scotland, right? Because when did Scotland become synonymous with, sausage meat? How did that happen? When I think of Scotland, I think of a fantastic literary scene. I think of the 60s folk clubs that gave rise to the incredible string band Billy Connolly. I think of the Highlands, the beautiful islands. I think of a certain economic stringency and a tendency towards alcoholism. But I do not think of sausage meat, right? I don't think of, sausages and sausage meat. Egg, right? That's an egg. And a Scotch egg, that is an egg with sausage meat round it. So by logical extension, if you have a land, that's forests, coastline, mountains, and then Scotland, is that forest, coastlines and mountain, but with a kind of sausage meat coating? When I drive north, there is not a point in between Newcastle and Edinburgh when my car grinds to a halt, because it has become trapped in a massive wall of pig offcut that is encasing the whole of Scotland from the highlands to the lowlands. Eggs.